Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. We broadcast 2 hours, Monday through Friday, from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up. 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. USA Prepares is a broadcast that teaches classes 2 hours a day. And we teach classes on everything that we are interested in because we believe that you're probably interested in many of them as well. Like gardening, farming, how to buy a farm, how we negotiate, rifle, pistol, shotgun, solar energy, being an inventor, saving money, avoiding paying taxes legally, starting your own business. Everything that we can think of that you might be interested in. And here's a story, and we do it by telling stories, at least I do. And why? Well, because when I went to the university back in the 1970s, there were two schools of thought. One is everything relates to mathematics, and you can run everything by mathematics, and the other, and you can teach through mathematics. And that would be the Wharton School of Business. That would be their approach. And then the other approach, the Harvard approach, I did not go to Harvard, but the school that I went to used a combination of mathematics and stories. Stories meaning case studies. Here's a situation that a business was in. Here was the problem. Here's what they did. And based on what they did, here are the results. Now, the results are good, bad, or indifferent. And you could judge whether their strategies were good, bad, or indifferent based on the results. And that is what we try to do here at USA Prepares. It's difficult to teach mathematics on the air. But storytelling seems to work. And case studies seems to work. So here's a case study. Our family has been involved in auto mechanics pretty much starting when I was about, let's say, just maybe before 10 years old. I just had this interest in things mechanical, engines, motors, and also electrical things and electronics. So I've taught our family, our children all have learned auto mechanics from me because they'd watch Dad and they would learn from Dad, and they'd watch Dad turn the wrenches and the ratchets and use levers and, things like that. And, hey, Guineith, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I was just
to be with you eventually. Could you get the people from GCN to give me a quick call back?
Sure.
Maybe during the next ad.
Sure. Well, we can call you back right now. Can you do that? Can you call Guineith right back, please? And what I'll do is I'll just continue with this story that I'm telling.
Okay. No, that's lovely. I'll be on air soon.
Okay, very good. And we'll call you right back. Okay, so being interested in automotive things, we do all of our own work here at the farm. And we buy a lot of automotive-type parts, bearings, belts, pulleys, fan clutches, motors, switches, wire, hoses, filters, oil, front-end parts, even axle parts, transmission parts, internal engine parts. And we frequent stores that we like. And we've noticed that there are two major chain stores in automotive parts here in our neck of the woods in Missouri. One is AutoZone and the other is O'Reilly. And the most interesting thing is that if you go to their websites and you look up a part, you'll find that the price is exactly the same, or darn close, which sounds to me like they are cooperating with each other. You know, instead of slugging it out and trying to deliver better prices to the customers, they have agreed on prices. Mm-hmm. And Guineith, now that you're back, I'm talking about two automotive parts chain stores in our neck of the woods. One is called O'Reilly, the other is called AutoZone, and they have very close to the same prices. So instead of being competitive, they seem to have agreed, or they search each other's websites and they set the prices to be darn close to the same. So if you want to buy a gas cap for your vehicle, pretty much the same price. Water pump, same price. Brakes, same price. Fan belts, serpentine belts, same price. So it's who you like better. You know, who smiles more, who is more attentive, who gives better return service on warranty items, those kinds of things. And so here's what we found out. We found out that their prices were too high. So we would shop for parts on the internet, and there's a company called rockauto.com, R-O-C-K, auto.com. Now, if you know that you're going to do some work on a Saturday and it's a Monday, and you've got a few days for the parts to arrive, you'll get a much better price almost all the time if you go to Rock Auto. But you've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to wait until those parts arrive. Now, hopefully they'll be the right parts, and if they are, you can save, 30, 40, 50%. So that's what we do. But sometimes people show up at our farm and they need their vehicle fixed right away, and they want us to do it. So if that's the case and they've got to have it now, well, now costs more. Not because of us, but because of the local auto parts stores that I mentioned charge more than Rock Auto. So what we did was we went to the auto parts stores and we said, look, we've been doing business with you for a while, but you guys charge us the same price as everybody else. And we buy a lot more parts. And so they said, I'll tell you what, we'll give you 10% off. Okay, that's a good start. So we got 10% off. And then we said, you know what? If we buy something at your store, it's $100. If we buy it at Rock Auto, it's $50. And one of them said, I'll tell you what, we'll meet you in the middle, $75. We said, okay. And then what happened was, then what happened was they said, you know what, we can't do that anymore. Management's beating us up. So we'll give you 10% off. So that $100 part that they used to sell us for $100, then they came down to meet us in the middle at $75. Then they went back up to just 10% off, so now it's back to $90. And so we said, what's going on? They said, well, we have it right now. So if you want to buy it, we have it. But if you want it from Rock Auto, it's going to take 3 or 4 days. So we said, you're absolutely right. So they said, we're going to charge you full price from now on because we have it. And if you want it from us, it's full price. Or you go to Rock Auto and wait your 3 or 4 days. So I was with my son, and he and I said the same thing. Tell you what, how about if we call you 3 or 4 days in advance and tell you we're going to come in and pick it up? Will it be the Rock Auto price? You know what? They were speechless. They're absolutely speechless because upper management didn't tell them what to do. Now I'm talking about the store manager. The next part of this story is we walked in yesterday. We ordered some transmission filters and some other parts, a fan clutch for another vehicle. And we walked in because they didn't have them, so they special ordered them for us. And we walked in expecting to see the regular crew, the guys that we're used to dealing with. And why do we want to deal with the guys we're used to dealing with? Because they know us. Not that they hang out in our village. We don't even know where they live. We've never been to their house. They've never been to ours. But we see them all the time in the store. And they take care of us, and they don't make very many mistakes. So we like dealing with the same person. How about that? And the person that we deal with, his name is Jeremy, and he's a really good guy. You know, we walk in the door, hey, Vinny, how's it going? You know, and he treats us like we're special. All right, so we kind of like that. He recognizes us. He knows who we are. We don't have to tell him who we are when he rings up the transaction because he knows it. He's paid enough attention to remember his customers. Okay, so we went in yesterday, and Jeremy wasn't there. The store manager wasn't there. All the guys that we dealt with, all of them, were gone. And I walked in the door, and this new middle-aged gal says to me, hey, hi, can I help you? And the first thing out of my mouth was, wow, all new faces.
Where's Jeremy?
All new faces. They cleaned house. They literally cleaned house. Now, this gal said, and there's a reason why I'm telling this story. The gal who greeted us said, "Hey, I'm the new manager." I said, "Okay, well, good to meet you. But we're used to dealing with the old guys. Now, this is nothing personal, but we had a rapport with them. They knew what they knew our idiosyncrasies, our quirks. They knew what we liked, what we didn't like, and you're all new faces, every one of you. So it's nothing personal. It's just that we're kind of shocked that you cleaned house." And I said, "So tell me, how long have you been in the automotive parts business?" She said, 3 years, but that's not why they hired me. She said, "They hired me because I'm an accountant." I said, "Oh, jeez." Yeah, I said, "Geez, really?" And, she saw the dismay in my body language. And, I didn't hide it. I didn't hide it at all. I didn't put a big smile on and say, "Well, that's great. I'm so glad you're an accountant." And here's why I don't like that. And I told her, I explained to her that accountants run businesses by numbers. Numbers. Okay? And they destroy businesses. Right. So, and here's the perfect example. Perfect example is if you go into the Division of Motor Vehicles, in a city, you take your number and you sit down and you hold this card with a number. They go, "Okay, 27, 28, because 27 wasn't paying attention. Because that person has a name, might be Mary, and Mary wasn't thinking that her new name is 27. So in the Division of Motor Vehicles, you're a number, not a name. You're not a person. You're just a number. And that's why one of the reasons why we hate going to Division of Motor Vehicles, because they treat us like numbers, not like individual people that matter. Okay, so you put all this together, and on the way out the door, with my son, we're walking to my truck, and I said, "Well, I guess that's it for AutoZone," because that's how they want to treat us, as numbers, and it's not going to work for us. And I told the manager, I said, I looked her right square in the eye, and I said, "We want to be treated special." It's like, what's with you? What makes you special? Well, I'm a customer. That's what makes me special. Guineith and I will be right back. I'd love to hear your take on all this. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Charles in Ohio, you're on the phone. Welcome.
Hello. Hey, good morning. I really enjoy the show. I like that you're a hands-on kind of person. And I wanted to say that years ago, I've had a hobby for a long time. I enjoy automotive, too. I'm familiar with some of the shops around here, and they ran into the problem you were talking about camshaft wear. They would rebuild the engine, put it on a stand, and try and break it in on a dyno. And by the time they broke it in, they would have wear on the lobes. And they know that GM and Chrysler do sell a package over the counter in their parts department that have the additives in it for
the ZDDP,
zinc disulfide and other wear agents. But the main thing I want to talk to you about was a big conspiracy. Are you familiar with the name Thomas Ogle?
Go ahead. Tell us about Thomas Ogle.
Thomas Ogle, around 1977, took a 4,000-pound Ford LTD with a larger V8 engine, and he demonstrated for government officials, college professors, and mechanics he could go more than 100 miles on a gallon of gasoline. And I thought that was something very interesting. It was widely reported, and I knew I was going to look into it when I got a chance. And our local paper had, at one time, several years ago, it was a full-page advertisement in Parade magazine, which still exists in a lot of newspapers, I guess. But it was in search of the elusive 100-mile-per-gallon carburetor. And so I sent for that book, and I looked at it, and I wasn't really impressed with it. But thinking back, I guess it really is an impressive piece of work. But what I learned was several people had these devices, and back in those days, I'd look in the back of Popular Mechanics magazine, and there'd be advertisements for people saying, they had the 100-mile-per-gallon carburetor. So I knew I would look into it when I got a chance. So over 30 years, I've been going to the local library, and I look in the patent records at fuel savings devices, and I found out several things very interesting. But I think Thomas Ogle was telling the truth. There's very little doubt in my mind. There was like I say, his work was widely reported. But it brought me on to that point and another point. Whether you believe in global warming or you don't believe in global warming, this is the thing. Before nuclear submarines came around, a lot of boats use diesel engines, and they would recharge their batteries on the surface, and they would run on batteries underwater. Well, they knew it would be better. U.S., German, Russia knew it would be better if they could run their diesel engines. This was before we had sound detecting devices. They could detect the noise of engines in water. If they could run their engines underwater while they were submerged. And so they had a closed fuel system where that diesel's exhaust would be turned back into a burnable fuel and put back into the intake of the engine. And you would run on it. Well, the point is that, guess what? We got global warming, and the two major causes they say for global warming are greenhouse gases and transportation. That's our cars and our power plants that burn coal and whatnot. Well, we could alleviate those problems with a closed fuel system. And I'm saying that not because the Navy, but people have demonstrated they could do it with the automobile. And what I'm saying is Thomas Ogle's system is pretty easy to reproduce, and it should give you a greatly extended mileage. And if you close the fuel system, that should make an internal combustion engine and run it more like a air conditioning system where the gas remains in a loop and it's turned back into a gas and it goes back to the intake. And people have demonstrated that this could be done.
Charles, if you'd like to hold, we'd love to continue this conversation. I'm sure Guineith Isaacs has some comments, and I do as well. I met a gentleman by the name of Paul Pantone.
Yes.
And he developed, I met him, I talked with him. I saw his vehicle that he drove to an event, and I saw this. I'll tell you a little bit more about it when we come back. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and Charles in Ohio called, and he was talking about these inventions that we've heard of that are alleged to give us greater miles per gallon. I mentioned that I met Paul Pantone at an event, and he and I were talking about his GEET system, G-E-E-T, which superheated the fuel air mixture to be burned in an internal combustion engine like a lawnmower engine or a gasoline automotive engine. And he said that it got 70 miles per gallon with a Chrysler Slant 6 225 cubic inch engine. He drove it there, and he had a little lawnmower carburetor on it, the kind of carburetor that you might see on a push lawnmower. So there he was with it. I saw it. Boy, his life turned inside out. He was attacked in many ways. I don't have all the details in front of me, but it wasn't all very pleasant. After I think he was arrested, charged with fraud, and it was uncomfortable. My dad told me a story that he had heard from many people that in the 1930s there was a carburetor that was developed, and this carburetor would deliver about 100 miles per gallon in an automobile. Now back then you were talking about 10 miles per gallon, and this was delivering 10 times that efficiency. And the story goes that the big oil companies, one of them bought the rights, the design, the patent, everything, and it never appeared. So we don't have that 100-mile-per-gallon carburetor. But I'm pretty sure that it's not just a carburetor. It's a carburetor and accessories to that carburetor to make this work. Guineith, I'd love to hear your comments.
Okay, my dad, like I said before, my dad was a master engineer, and he said the number of times that the water carburetor had been invented was absolutely astronomical.
He said that there was a water carburetor?
He said he'd heard of a number of them.
Okay. And did you say the word water?
Water carburetors.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that it absolutely positively works, because I used to race cars back in the 1970s on the track, and I experimented with a couple different things, and I'm sure Charles might have some thoughts on this. I still have the car. It's a 1968 American Motors AMX. It was their muscle car, and it has a 390 cubic inch engine in it with a Carter brand AFB carburetor. It's a 4-barrel carburetor, and it has fuel metering rods, and these are brass rods that are progressively larger and larger and larger. They would meter how much fuel would be allowed to mix with the air based on the volume of air flowing through the carburetor. And what I did was I coated the 2 fuel metering rods on my carburetor, Carter carburetor, AFB model, with radio solder, lead tin 6040 solder, and I made the metering rod larger just by the thickness of the layer of solder on it. And I changed the fuel ratio of a typical 14.1 parts of air to 1 part gasoline to more parts air by restricting the amount of gasoline that was allowed to be metered through this metering system. And it worked. I was able to get, 20% better fuel economy simply by doing that. And I also experimented with water injection. So I made a mister that would mist water that would mix with the gasoline air mixture, and I got the equivalent of higher octane and more horsepower. So yes, that works too. So I know for a fact from my experimentation decades and decades and decades ago that it works. Now, I wasn't able to deliver 100 miles per gallon, but I was able to deliver at least 20% more miles per gallon. Charles, you have any comments on that?
Absolutely. Paul Pantone is a hero, GEET industry. So many comments, so many different directions. But yes, I have acquired from the U.S. Patent Office. Right now, I have more than 10,000 patents, and among them, I do have patents on different water systems to run automobiles off of. Steam. You can add water, you can add steam to the combustion process, or you can run completely off of water with a system like Stanley Myers from Grove City, Ohio.
I was going to say the Stanley Steamer.
Well, this is Stanley Myers. He was a scientist who worked with the Battelle Institute, and he, around 1979, there are videos of him and his conversion system running on in a dune buggy. He ran from Ohio to California to demonstrate it back in that era, and he ended up dead under mysterious circumstances. But he had instead of most times people generate hydrogen to use as a fuel, they'll use a high current system, electrolyze it with a electrolyte into the water. Well, he used a high voltage system rather than high current, and he could separate the hydrogen out of the water on demand, and he demonstrated that he could do it. And like I say, the thing is not these isolated inventions, but it's when you connect the dots between them. That's like Paul Pantone. Before he got his, and he is exactly what I'm talking about, a closed fuel system. His isn't 100% closed all the time. But once you can manipulate the valve, you can close it and run it closed loop. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And Phillips Petroleum had the patent that he has first, and he was using a nickel catalyst to shift what it does. It's like we use a catalytic converter to remediate the carbon dioxide, the carbon monoxide, and the hydrocarbons in the fuel. Well, nickel shift takes it, and it'll separate the hydrogen from the water, and it leaves you with a burnable gas. See, where you run gas at a 14-to-1 stoichiometric ratio, you can burn hydrogen at a wide variety of ratios. It'll still ignite with a lot less oxygen. But I have so much information, and that's why I haven't sat down and built a system. But the water, where water injection came from was in the Second World War. They had trouble getting quality gas for like the fighter aircraft going off of aircraft carriers and under different situations. So they found that the Germans did a lot of their basic early research during the Second World War showed how advantageous it was to add water to the combustion process. You could basically get away with running. You're always running on a nice edge to get efficiency out of an engine, and that's what it's all about. It's all about engine efficiency. And so you increase compression ratio will give you increased efficiency, but you run it to the limit of the fuel. The fuel quality limits how much compression ratio you could have. And then you add advanced, but you can run a lot higher compression with the water injection. And
it's interesting that you it's interesting that you say this, Charles, because that's exactly what I did. I used water injection. I increased the compression ratio, which was typically about 9 point something to 1. I increased it to about 11 to 12, 11 at the minimum, or 12 to 1 compression ratio, and the water would improve we'll call it the octane rating of the fuel, and then I could advance the ignition point. I could advance the ignition timing so that I would get maybe a little over 27 degrees ignition advance on the engine. And is that what you're talking about, what I did?
Exactly. And see, the thing is, like I say, you're bumping a limit. What you're doing is tuning your engine for maximum efficiency, maximum power. So what you do is you end up with a stock engine, and what happens is you advance the timing. Well, that utilizes the fuel better, but it comes to a point where the engine will start pinging. Well, you increase your fuel's octane, and then you can advance it some more. See, it puts the ignition at the peak pressure that the fuel can handle to deliver peak power, and then you'll run into pinging. Well, then you can add some water. Then you can add a little more compression. It's just you're tweaking it little by little. But I have so much information that you really should talk to me off the air, because the facts I have could bore a lot of people. And the thing is, what I'm talking about, and even you realize, is with Pantone system, you could run a home generator and charge your batteries for times when the sun's down, and you can get your own off-grid system working much more efficiently.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Will you please leave your telephone number with our engineer? And we have a communication system where he can type in your phone number, and I'll call you. Okay, in an evening. I can't make many calls or receive many calls during the day because I'm a farmer and I'm really, really busy during daylight hours. But in the evenings, it's a little easier for me. So, when we go into this break, make sure you leave your number with our engineer. He'll write it down, okay?
Absolutely.
And we'll talk. Great. Okay, we're going into that break. Charles, I want to thank you for being with us, and our engineer will take that number. Guineith and I will be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us. Guineith, a couple of things we were talking about. One was the auto parts scenario where I want to be treated as a special person. Not because I'm special, just because I'm their customer. And I think they should pay attention to me, and I think they should, be interested in why I'm their customer. And what do you think about what I said about how stores collude, or I believe they collude in pricing, they price fix. And if it's not like the auto parts stores, it could be the big box stores where you have Home Depot and Lowe's in the United States, or the home improvement centers, at least that's what they call themselves. And if you want to buy a washing machine, you can. And you go to one, and it's $489, for example. And you go to the other one, and you think, well, let me comparative shop and figure out which one is a better price for me, better value. And you find out it's a different price, higher or lower, but it's not the same model number. And the reason is because Lowe's will go to the manufacturer and say, we want our model number to be 123, and then Home Depot will say, we want ours to be 127. So is 127 better than 123? You can't figure it out. It's really difficult. So they'll say, well, we'll match anybody's price, but it's got to be the same thing. You say, well, the other guys have model 123, and here's their price, and your price is higher. But they go, yeah, but it's not the same model number. Ours is 127. So they've got it, or they've already figured it out for years. So you can't get that lower price. So the price matching is almost non-existent. Even though they say we'll do it, it's hard to get them to do it because they'll say, well, it's not the same thing. What do you think about all that I've said? I know it's a lot.
Well, price collusion is not supposed to happen because in the US they would call it antitrust. Here in Australia they call it, flat-out collusion and price fixing and fraud. It's not supposed to happen, but everybody knows that it does. And, how could you get across a whole, metropolitan city, every single gas station, every single, fuel station, service station, having exactly the same price of gas to maybe within 1 or 2 cents each way? Across, we might be talking about maybe 100 gasoline stations, and they all one's $1.22, one's $1.23, one's $1.21, but they're all in that narrow range, and they have to make it. And of course they get on the phone, each morning, and they collude, or they have some website that they go to and they collude on prices. Of course they do it. And it's not just the gasoline stations, it's supermarkets, and it's, big box hardware and appliance stores and the whole 9 yards. They all collude. And they're not supposed to. They deny it till they're blue in the face, but the fact is self-evident. That's what they do.
Right. And in Springfield, Missouri, they price fix, and all the gas stations, with very, very few exceptions, almost all of them have the same price to the 10th of a cent. So, like right now, it's 265.9. And what is this 0.9 stuff? 266, right? 265.9. These guys have been lying to us for years. And I don't like companies who sell with the 0.9 or the 0.99. Meaning $10.99 or $9.99. It's not scientific. It's designed to cheat you and make you think it's $10 instead of $11. But yeah, I believe the price is fixed just as you said, and evidence is in Springfield, Missouri. It's everywhere, every gas station, with just a few exceptions. We'll be right back. We're going into top of the hour news and commercial announcements. Glenn, what are we going to talk about when we come back?
Okay, I think that it would be a really good idea if we just talked about how things really work.
Okay. Guineith Isaacs, How Things Really Work. I'm Vin Finelli, USA Prepares. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and we're going to talk about how things really work. Guineith, I just have a quick update. Our son told me just a couple minutes ago at the top of the hour that Harbor Freight, it's a tool company in the United States. It's the Chinese factory tool outlet. Okay, it's the Walmart of tools. And just about everything they sell is from China. They have a recall, and this is a pretty serious recall. And I want you to think about this, class. I do buy Harbor Freight hand tools, okay, but I don't buy Harbor Freight tools that are electrically powered because I think they're substandard. At least my opinion of them is that they're substandard. And they have a chainsaw, an electric chainsaw. It carries the name Portland. And Harbor Freight is like famous for using U.S. names on these Chinese products, like Portland, like Chicago Electric. Okay, those are some of the names that they use for some of their electricity-driven products. Well, they have a chainsaw. It's a 14-inch. It comes with the name Portland, and the power switch, the on-off switch, doesn't always work, and it may not shut off. Now, So here's the thing. You have a chainsaw, class, and it's plugged into an extension cord. Now, it has a short power cord on the end of the chainsaw, but it's electrically powered. So you operate the trigger, and the electric motor drives the chain. Now, when you handle a chainsaw, you always have 2 hands on the chainsaw to grip it. Now, what do you do when you have a chainsaw that you engage the switch to run the chain, and it won't stop? It won't stop. That's the problem with this particular chainsaw. How many did they recall? 1,020,000. 1,020,000. The recall date was just a couple days ago, May 14th, 2018. So the remedy is to replace it. But I just wanted to make sure that you all heard this if you happen to buy a Harbor Freight chainsaw. And you can just bring it back. If you want to call them, 800-444-3353. 800-444-3353. Okay, so that's the chainsaw that is being recalled. Okay, back to you, Guineith. How things work.
Okay. You know something? It's really interesting because there's a way that we've been told how things work in this world, and there's the way that things actually work in this world. And the two are basically light years apart. Okay? Like, for example, you get told that you must send your child to the local state school. Okay? Excuse me, the local state school is actually a corporation, and you cannot be compelled to contract with a corporation against your consent. You don't have to send your child to the local state school. Okay? If you look into the corporate structure of your local school, that is, or local public training camp that's supposed to be educating your children, I think that you'll find they're actually a corporation. And once you find out that an entity is a corporation, you're home and hosed because you don't have to consent to contract with a corporation unless you actually want to. It would be like somebody holding a gun to your head and telling you that you must shop now at Walmart. You know, although in a lot of places there's no other grocery stores there, so you more or less are anyway. But if you really wanted to, shop, if you wanted to grow your own vegetables, or if you wanted to shop at another grocery store, you absolutely could. You know, it's like this. The banking system and Bitcoin, it's really, really been quite amusing to watch, knowing how things actually operate. The banking industry's response to Bitcoin, because the public face of it is they are having a very, very public freak out over Bitcoin. Here in Australia, they have been closing people's bank accounts because they have been, buying and selling Bitcoin using their bank accounts. And then they, accusing them of money laundering. This is just ordinary people, right? This is not and meanwhile, the actual money launderers get to have a free pass and go home and hosed. Does this make sense to you? And behind the scenes,
you're talking about the banks who are money launderers, right? Or corporations.
Yeah, that's right. I don't see anyone raising even a single eyebrow about the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, for instance. That 2015, 2016, it was a very public scandal about their role in laundering Asian drug money. And when I heard that, I just rolled my eyes. Because the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation was set up over 200 years ago by a certain particular British banking family that I'm not going to name on air, but everybody could fill in the blanks here, for the express purpose of laundering opium money from their opium trading through the British India Company, through... who were making opium in Afghanistan and India and then shipping it to China and getting all the Chinese people addicted to opium and then laundering the money back to the UK through the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. And there's been books written on that. I'm not saying anything that's not absolutely public and out there. It's a well-known historical fact.
Let me share something that's not out there. I used to work for a division. Of Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Corporation. Class, you may not recognize the name we're talking about. Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Corporation. Well, that's not the name they use. The name they use is HSBC. HSBC. Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Corporation. And I built a computer system for them. Several computer systems. I didn't realize I was just a little pawn in the big machine. I did not realize what this was like until one day I was in the president's office talking about, this computer system that I was building and giving him an update. And the marketing guy, the marketing vice president walks in, or assistant vice president, and starts talking about portfolio securitization. This is in the 1980s. Portfolio securitization. What's that? Well, at the time I had a master's in business. I should have known what that was.
Mortgages.
That's exactly what it was. It was bundling debt. We were a credit card division of... we were a credit card division of Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Corporation, and we were taking credit card debt. Not me, but, the management was taking credit card debt. So you charge $1,000 on your credit card, and then our division of the bank would bundle a bunch of that and then sell it to another bank, bundling debt. And I looked out the window of his office while I was hearing this, and I was thinking, this is a house of cards. We're taking debt and selling it. And I never learned that people in 6 formal years of study, that would be 4 formal years of undergraduate Bachelor of Science degree at a major university, studying business, economics, finance as a major, economics as a minor, and then going on for a master's degree in the same thing. I should have known better. Okay, but I didn't learn 2 things I didn't learn. One, that the Federal Reserve was a private corporation. They never told us that. It's not in any books. Okay, and the other thing, at least at that time, and the other thing was that you could sell debt. It's foreign. It was the weirdest thing I've ever heard of. I mean, I could understand selling an asset, but so debt has some value. Unbelievable.
Yep.
And of course, that all led to the collapse, right? It led to the collapse around 2007.
Yeah.
And please continue. I just wanted to share that.
What's going on here, I'm not sure if it's going on in the United States, but here what they do is that the local municipalities in Australia are all private corporations, and therefore they have no right to charge taxes, because corporations cannot charge you taxes. You know, if they try to, that's called extortion, okay? What they're doing, when the people can't or won't pay their property taxes, unless they bring this up, this is, if anybody's in Australia, and if you're in the United States, just check if your municipality is actually a corporate municipality. And this line of legal reasoning will work in the United States. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't guarantee that, but theoretically should work. I probably should say, and this is not legal advice. What they're doing is they are taking these property tax invoices, okay, and they are selling them on the debt market, okay. And when I found out that the municipality was a corporation, and I wrote to them and I said, I'm not paying the rates anymore because you've been lying to me. Basically, that was it in a nutshell. You're a corporation, and I refuse to consent to contract with you anymore. You said you were a government. You're not a government, blah, 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 blah. And anyway, what they did was they sold my debt to a law firm. And the law firm tried to collect on it, and I told the law firm the same that I'd told the municipality. And they tried to take me to court, and that fell through the floor because I said, you know, you're a corporation, the council's a corporation, and neither of you have the right to enforce a contract without my consent. This is how things really work. And then, you know what the law firm did? They sold my debt to Dun & Bradstreet.
They sold your debt to Dun & Bradstreet. Gwyneth Isaacs, you are an international hero. Let's talk more about this when we come back. So we can use the word hero or heroine. And a heroine is a woman admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, noble qualities. Okay? And a hero is a brave person, a brave man, a brave woman, a man or a woman of courage, a champion, a victor, a conqueror, a star, a luminary, a paragon. There you go. So those are words to define what a hero is, and heroine also. And that's what you are, Gwyneth. You are someone who is showing that, yes, you can stand up to the big bad machine. You can say no, and you have. And please tell us how that is working when you said, you guys can't force me to pay you and do business with you and contract with you because you are a corporation, and I choose not to engage in commerce with your corporation. How did that work out with you and your property taxes?
They give you hell, basically. But if you dig your heels in, ultimately there's very little that they can do. Okay? When I said they sold my debt to Dun & Bradstreet, I should point out that Dun & Bradstreet is a totally fraudulent organisation, and that if anyone is being harassed out there in the class by Dun & Bradstreet, they need to write to Dun & Bradstreet and point out that they are still signing their letters in the name of Mr. Dunn, who's been dead for many, many years, which is fraud in and of itself. That totally fraudulent organisation. There's no way that anything that they do is legitimate because, you know, they buy debt that, subprime debt, okay, and they, have their legal heavies that are basically all paid off, but total pitbull thugs of the legal world, and but they're operating in total fraud because they, aside from Mr. Dunn, none of them will put their name to any of the correspondence that they send out, not their real name anyway. You know, you can't trace these people, and
they have been.
You can't just collect a debt in the name of a corporation. There has to be somebody who is an actual physical human being who is collecting on that debt.
They have been attempting to get information from us for years. They will even call us and say, okay, we just want to get a little more information to update our database, you know, about you. And we just tell them, take a hike.
Tell them nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They can take a hike.
Mm-hmm.
No,
yeah.
In total fraud. And, you know, so when I received the correspondence that was from Dun and Bradstreet, I think it was supposed to scare me, but what it actually did was it sent me into fits of hysterics. Laughter, I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I quite literally saw the message and began laughing.
Sure.
Because knowing that, you know, the corporation, which was a law firm that was trying to collect on it for probably about 12 months or more, finally realized that they'd failed.
Mm-hmm.
Which was, by the way, shall I give them some free promotion? MCC Legal. They handle all the bad debts for all the municipalities, so-called bad debts, by the way, for all the municipalities all over Victoria, and they're called MCC Legal, and they are supposed to be a law firm, but all they do is debt collection, so-called debt collection, which is mostly attempting to collect on fraudulent notices of demand sent out by municipalities towards the poor sufferers who live there, or not even sufferers, because that's a legal thing. The poor victims. Okay, they're not sufferers. They don't allow it. They only allow it by the fact that they don't know what's going on.
I've got a comment about this when we come back, and a strategy that we've just tried, and it seems to work. You know, when people call you and harass you. Gwyneth Isaacs, live in Australia. I'm Vince Finelli. We'll be right back. So, class, you were talking about dealing with corporations, and here are a couple tactics that you might consider. So, we got a phone call a few days ago. Mrs. Finelli answered the phone, and person said, "Hi, Mrs. Finelli, please." And so she said, "Who is this?" And the person said, "Well, I'm just here to take a survey." A short survey, and Mrs. Finelli said, "Well, she doesn't live here anymore." The person said, "Okay, thank you very much." And that was it. So now we are off that database, okay? So that's one tactic. Now, I don't like lying, okay? I just don't. But Rich Shealy says it very, very well. He says if they do it, you can do it. Okay, so if they're going to lie to us and they're going to act like they want to take a survey and they really want to do something else, garner information, okay, if they're lying, if they start out of the gate lying, okay, just nip it right in the bud. Okay, so I'm saying if they can do it, you can do it. And Rich Shealy, I got that from Rich Shealy. I did. USA Prepares instructor. Here's another one. So Dr. Adam Fortunate Eagle, he was the principal organizer of the occupation of Alcatraz prison, okay? And for almost 2 years, the band of Native American tribes got together and they occupied Alcatraz. Well, he became an enemy of the state, and still is. He's been on the air with us many times. And he said that a couple federal agents showed up on the Fallon Indian Reservation, Fallon, Nevada, and they were looking for him. He was inside watching CNN on television, and his wife was in the yard in the garden or something, and these federal agents came up to her, showed a picture to her of her husband, Dr. Adam Fortunate Eagle. And the agent said, "Do you know this man?" And she looked at the picture, and she said, "I used to, but he died a long time ago, or he died years ago." I said, "Okay, thank you very much," and they left. So that's another example. And here's just one more. I was talking to a farmer in Missouri several days ago, And we were talking about the revenue agents, how they just show up. They just show up at your house unannounced, and they want to take inventory of what else they can tax you on. Whatever you've got, plus whatever you might have improved your property with. They want to, you put a front porch on, a side porch, you put a screened-in porch, you added a new little shed. Whatever it is, they want to recognize and update their inventory so they can tax you more. Okay? Well, he said he just put a gate and he locks his gate to his farm. And now the revenue agent comes up to the gate, goes, it's locked, calls him up and says, hey, is there anything new? Have you done anything new that I need to know about and tax you on? What a great way to go. So that was his response. So those are three quick answers that you may want to deploy at your own risk. But those are true stories. So, Guineith, these people are a nuisance. These revenue agents are a nuisance.
They're a dangerous nuisance.
If you have built something, if you have created an asset, regardless of what it is, they want a piece of it.
None of their
But they want a piece of it. So if you build a barn, they want a piece of your barn forever. Forever.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a story. Okay. I have some friends, and I will actually name who my friend was. I say was because he died. Okay. My friend, his name was Jim Apostolilis. Okay. He lived in the Bendigo area, and he had a business. And his business was that he bred dogs. Okay. And he had a very, very well set up kennel facility. And in his kennel facility, he had accommodation for 600 dogs, okay? Probably around about something like 500 bitches and maybe 100 dogs. I'm not sure of what ratio that he had. But he absolutely loved his canines. They were in proper big runs and yards and all of this. They weren't in small cages or anything like this. But that was the business that he had, okay? He had accommodation for 600 dogs, but he only had a so-called council permit or license for 400. And his, somebody told the dog ranger about the fact that he had 200 more canines than he was supposed to have, and the municipality came in and they confiscated all of his dogs, and they cancelled his dog breeding license, and they closed him down, despite the fact that all of his dogs were clean, healthy, well looked after, and he would go with a high-pressure hose and hose out their runs every day and all this sort of thing, okay? And do you know what happened 2 weeks after that? 2 weeks after the municipality came in and shut down his dog breeding business, Jim Apostolilis died of a heart attack.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It quite literally broke his heart.
Yeah.
And
well, he's not the only one. He's not the only one.
Because this was a lovely guy. He always had the highest moral and ethical standards in his business. And he bred beautiful pups. He really, really did. And now his wife's a widow. She's got a 600-dog facility that she can't use.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's not the only one, and and it's not just in Australia. We have a neighbor who was breeding magnificent dogs, purebred dogs, and they built an incredible dog kennel. And this was like an apartment building for dogs. There was an indoor and outdoor run. If they wanted to be inside, they just pushed the dog door open and they went inside. If they wanted to go outside, they went outside. They were fed, watered, it was hosed down. It was designed to be easily maintained, easily sanitized. It was incredible. And in Missouri, there was a vote to ban these what are called puppy mills, because they said some people are inhumane to dogs, and they made the restrictions so difficult that our neighbors gave up. They gave up, and now they have this building that has one purpose. It's for dogs, raising dogs. And that's what the government does. And there are two other stories. There's a story of Baker's Green Acres, and he was raising pigs and in Michigan on his farm, and the Michigan Department of Natural Resources came down on him. They said, you're going to have to kill all your animals, or they're going to fine him. And the fine was about $700,000. And he told them no. And he took a page out of our book, and he exposed them. Mark Baker is a USA Preparedness instructor. He became one as a result of this. I drove up with the Dollarhite family, John and Judy Dollarhite, who were also instructors. And we met with Mark Baker, and we talked to him about the tactics he could employ. And he won, because he exposed them by name and number on the internet. He exposed these attackers from the government, and he won. He literally won. And then the Dollarhite family, they were, and you can look them up, they were raising, their son was raising rabbits for sale. And it was working great. And then the Missouri, it was the government that came and attacked them and fined them over $1 million for raising rabbits. They said, well, these cages aren't right. Okay, what's wrong with them? Well, they're not right. Well, what's wrong with them? Well, they're not right. What do we do to fix it? Well, they wouldn't tell them. They wouldn't tell them what was wrong, but they fined them, and they made their life pure hell for a couple of years. It cost them a lot of health. It really did. And ultimately, I'm not sure the exact disposition of it, but the book is going down the multi-million-dollar rabbit hole by Judy Dollarhite. So she wrote the book, and it was pure hell. So these parasites come and invade and show up, and they want to make your life hell. Because if they don't, they lose their job. If they don't extort money from you, right? If they don't extort money from you, right? And I'm sick and tired of people saying, well, it's my job. It's my job to harass you. It's my job to fine you. It's my job to spy on you. It's my job to make your life difficult. It's my job to regulate you. Really? It's your job to be a parasite, a pervert, a pedophile, and a nuisance, and destroy commerce?
Yep.
It's unacceptable. I don't want these people.
Something, I was actually speaking with a friend the other day, and we were talking about this very topic. And the municipality where I live, it used to have, I don't know if you've heard of a particular scales manufacturer that is like, weighing scales for, industry,
yes.
kitchens and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be called the Wedderburn Scale Company, okay? And they used to manufacture especially industrial scales, okay? And guess where the Wedderburn Scale Factory used to be based? Wedderburn. Wedderburn is around, the town of Wedderburn in Victoria is around about 20 kilometres from where I live, okay? And I think nowadays Wedderburn scales might be manufactured in China, but they used to be manufactured here, and they used to be a major employer here in my local area. And something, we go into Wedderburn, and there's just masses and masses of empty industrial buildings.
Hold that thought. So, if you were talking about the Wedderburn Scale Company, and how, and it's spelled Wettdderburn, and how the town in which they operated has a lot of empty buildings. Same thing is happening in the United States, and it's happened for quite a long time. Overbearing regulations have really wreaked havoc on Detroit and Flint, Michigan. Same thing. And other cities of industry.
Yep, that's right. And the manufacturing. Initially, I was in an antiques market in Ballarat, which is another fairly major town that's... anyway, I was at this antique market, and I actually saw a Wedderburn scale. And I found something out through this Wedderburn scale that I saw in the antique market. Initially, after they moved out of Wedderburn, they moved to Melbourne. They moved their manufacturing to Melbourne. And keeping the name Wedderburn Scale Company, but then after that, I think they have actually now moved their manufacturing to China. And you know something, I can just about guarantee that the quality of the Wedderburn scales is not what it used to be. Now, the people at the front line of destroying the economy of, this municipality, and I think practically every municipality in Australia, are the local municipality, the corporation that calls themselves the municipal government. Okay? They're not a government. They're an extortionate cartel. Anytime anyone thinks of any really, really good way of making money in the municipality steps in, and what they do is they offer to support this local industrial venture. And if you say, oh, no, I'm all right, actually, I don't really need your help, then they step in with their so-called codes. And the reason, and they do their darndest to shut you down unless you agree to cooperate with their marvelous ventures in industrial development within the municipality or some such ridiculous thing. That's how they operate. And what they want is to control all trade and commerce within the municipality, okay? From the chip shops, the sheep farmer, another major industry, used to be a major industry around here, was eucalyptus oil refining, because this area naturally grows. If all the sheep farmers and all the smallholders and all of that went away, this entire region would eventually revert to eucalyptus forest. That's just what grows here, and especially what grows especially well is a particular variety of eucalyptus called blue mallee, which is the best type or one of the best types of eucalyptus for oil production. And the municipality is attempting to reboot the local eucalyptus industry through various incentive programs. But once again, ultimately what they really want is they want control. That's what's going on in our neck of the woods.
No question. And in our neck of the woods, they use the term public-private partnerships, where the government can get in business with you and partner with you and siphon off, your hard-earned revenue. Guineith, I've got an opportunity on Friday. If you'd like to be on with us, would you let us know?
Yeah, that would be lovely. Yep.
Okay. Guineith Isaacs. Yeah, okay. So let's do that. Friday. Guineith will be with us. Okay, class, I think what Guineith is trying to show you is you can do it too. You can stand up to these parasites, these thugs, these perverts, who want a portion of what you have.